In this demonstration, I will describe the steps involved with modifying a custom molded semi-rigid foot orthotic. The first thing we need to do is go to this down arrow. We're going to left click and it's going to open up the foot orthotic wizard or stack. We're currently in an AFO modification stack, so left click that and this will bring us into the foot orthotic wizard. Left click the pronation supination tool, grab this and just move it right out of your way. Then right click and move the mouse toward yourself and it will move the image away from you. Then left click and tip the image so that you can just see the ball of the foot over the top of the heel. What's really important here now is to make sure that the Achilles tendon is perfectly straight up and down and vertical. So then I'm going to move my mouse just above the model, right click, and I'm going to tilt this so that the image, again, the Achilles tendon is perfectly straight up and down. What I want to make sure I have here is the forefoot is perpendicular to the Achilles tendon. And with this image, it's pretty close, although the first ray does look like it's a little higher, or in this case, dropped in relationship to the fifth metatarsal head. So if I move my cursor over to the left and right arrows here, I can now supinate or pronate my forefoot. The objective here is to get this so that it's square. And all I need is about 1 degree of pronation, okay, according to my supination pronation tool here. And that's all I'm going to do. Square this up, make it perpendicular to the Achilles tendon. That's all I need to do with that tool, and I can now move on to the next step. So I'm going to left click, remove material. I'm going to take and make my tool width 1.5 inches, fixed depth, and move to about 3/16 of an inch of material. I'm going to go and start to carve out my transverse arch. The marker there is the third metatarsal head. All right, so there's the modification for my transverse arch. I'm going to go back to the carved depth and go down to 1/8 of an inch. I personally don't like to get too aggressive because this has a pretty good arch in it currently. I'm going to stay away from the navicular, get up through the sustentaculatum tali region. Now I'm going to go over to the blend tool, go to medium, and now by right clicking I can blend all of this together. Go into the field so I can rotate the model. Go back to blend, change to a 1-inch tool. Oops, left clicked it by accident. And now I'm going to blend by right clicking just the very front of this. Have a look at this side and just blending, last little bit of blending, maybe just a little bit more through here, and I'm done. Next step, I'm going to add material. I'm going to stick with a 1-inch tool width, fixed depth, and all I'm going to do, because this is a semi-rigid foot orthotic, is 1/8 of an inch on the base of the fifth. These are quick. Blend all edges, tilt that up. A little bit on the head of the fifth. I can go over here, go to the medial side. A little bit on the navicular. So if you have a patient that has, or your practitioner has a patient that has a bony abnormality and you want to, that calls for a larger buildup, you can certainly change these tool settings and put larger buildups in a specific area. Just a little, again, 1/8 of an inch, and blend these edges. Every patient is unique in their own way. But for a standard foot orthotic, again, small little buildups in these areas work just fine. Again, calcaneal tuberosity not necessary because the trim lines are going to be down here. So I think that's all that's going to be necessary in this case. I'm going to just square this up on the medial side. We're going to go to raise and lower toes. These are actually pretty straight. If we want to raise or lower this, that's where this tool is very handy. So we're going to just leave it pretty straight right there. Looks good. Now we're going to go to the toe box option here. These little discs here, I'm going to zoom this out. And what's nice is if we can get one of these circles around to the side, it'll help us. And then we'll just leave those two right where they're at. It's nice if we can get an extra one of these around the side for us. And then ultimately to the bottom. So here, good. One of these might be the marker. We're going to replace that one to indicate the apex. Good. So if we can get an extra one of these markers to help to locate the transverse arch modification that we just spent so much time creating, it can be very helpful. So we're going to hit this button so we can see the plantar surface of our foot very clearly. And that's our marker. I just want to grab a hold, so we'll move it out of our way. What we want here is, from the side, it's easiest to see, is the very apex of this curve here, this flare that we created, is where we want to place this. Move that marker out of our way. Is where we want to place that line, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to hit plantar surface again, square it up, and then we want these discs right at our transverse arch. And then we're going to go over here and do this. I'm going to just move this one back a little bit so that we create this nice flowing transverse arch. And hit plantar again and square it up. So there we have a nice transverse arch. And these are at the apex, if you will, of our flares for the first and fifth met heads. All right, and then the front looks good, or the dorsum of the foot. I'm going to zoom this out. We're going to go over to these sliders, and this is going to create the toe box of our insert, and then we'll extend it out. And now that is pretty cool, for lack of a better way to put it. And a lot easier than adding it on with plaster. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove some material just to enhance our transverse arch a little bit and detail it out. We're going to go back to 1.5 inches, fixed depth, and we're just going to go back to about 1/8 of an inch, and we're just going to detail this out a little bit more. And we're going to blend it together, actually, and then sand this out. And that looks very nice. Okay, now the last and final step is we're going to, whatever you do here, don't left click because it'll throw off your medial lateral tilt. So you can right click, and you saw I just tilted this forward a little bit. I did not too much, and you be careful because you zoom out when you do that too. But I want to elevate my heel just a little bit. You can see my heel here, use the grid pattern. And now I'm going to take the screen here and pull it up into the bottom of my foot plate. Just till it gets to about those met heads. And now we're going to cut off the bottom of our foot plate. Okay, then we can pull our screen out of the way and spin that around. And if we look at the planar surface of our foot again, now we have a very nice foot plate built into this. Okay, first mat head, fifth mat head, transverse arch, and that looks very nice. You have a nice transverse arch built into that. Lateral border of the foot. Again, once this thing is carved, you can pull it however you want. If you don't need all this excess and you want to pull this in a bladder, you can just simply cut off the top of this thing. You can cut it off and put a pipe in it and pull it with plastic, so you can do rigid foot orthotics this way. But it's very quick, very easy to modify. Take a light screen to this and touch it up however you need to. But that is one way to modify foot orthotics, and everything is nice and square. So we look down that Achilles tendon, forefoot is square. Again, very nice arch. So that's how you can modify foot orthotics using CAD.